Welcome to another episode of the Throws Show. We had a big week this past week with the throws, D1 and D2 NCAA championships indoors. We had the European Indoor Championships, so a lot of action going on. D3 did not have championships, but the NAIA did have some championships. Congratulations to Grant Gaylor, one of our Throws U athletes who ended up getting second. I think he threw 1764, which is a huge PR. What do you throw in high school? 43 feet?
If that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's congrats, Grant. But anyway, we want to go over the D1 and D1 men's shot and women's shot and just get right into it. So here we've got Adelaide Aquila. Or do you think those L's are silent? I'm Trevor.
I'm not the one to ask for that. That's a toss.
Yes.
18-12.
So 18-12, and if you see on the screen recording, I love the fact that Ashley Kovacs, Coach Kovacs posted, 2018, 14 meters, and then, 3 years later, here she is throwing 18 meters, and you can see that progression. And I think that's a huge, quick progression, but also it just shows it takes time to build up, and especially to compete at that level and come out and throw 18-12. I think that might have even been her PR.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was a fairly big PR.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. I remember when I was at Toledo, she was in high school, and I remember watching her to meet. Is like, this girl has ridiculous pop, and I think she was throwing like maybe 41.
Okay.
In high school, maybe 43, but Ashley developed her very well.
I think the other thing too to say is like that comp was stacked. Like, and she beat Sam Nenig. That's another female who's one of the top female shot putters in the U.S., not just in the NCAA. I also wanted to ask you, Trevor, what are your thoughts on the men's?
Alex Daly back there.
What are your thoughts on the men's shot going on at the exact same time?
When I first saw that, I was looking for the live stream, and I saw like, oh, men's are going on. Oh, women's are going on also. I was like, what is going on here? I think that's dumb. Just because, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming there were athletes in both competitions. I mean, Arizona State.
Yeah, with Turner Washington, and then the girl got third.
Yeah. So that has to be a bit of a nightmare to coach, but I don't know why they would do that.
All right, good response. So we're gonna head into Turner Washington.
So on the other side of 5 feet away, the men. So that's 21-36.
21-36 for a nice dude. That almost just looks like easy.
Yeah.
So smooth. He actually got a little yell on that one, which is, I think that PR throw, he didn't get a yell on that. And I think knowing Pippery had been banged up, he hurt his ankle in training the week prior. I think he probably knew, look, if I get out 21 mid, that's probably going to be enough to solidify the comp and put a stamp on it. But man, he is freaking big.
I even like how he has coming out of the back, he has a little, like his upper body stays low, and it doesn't come up too much in the middle of the circle.
Yeah, I agree. He falls in a little bit, but he like re-holds his left in the middle, and his left leg is super quick to the front. I want to see his left leg. I really, really like out of the back. Yeah, he's
right
fast. I think he's for young kids watching. I think watch Washington's left leg. Compare his left leg to Kovacs and the Krauser. It's one of the fastest out there, and that's where you're going to get a lot of your speed.
Yeah. Like he looks fast, and he's fast because his left leg is fast to the front.
Yeah.
So
this is Pippery's first throw, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Pippery banged up his right ankle in training on a non-reverse. Oh.
I thought this was a cool throw because, he's injured already, but he still looks like he murdered this throw still.
And he gets after it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's a foul, and if you saw the rest of the competition, his other throws looks like he was pretty hurt. But it's a shame he wasn't able to pull this one in.
Yeah, you can see he's almost like a little too stiff on that right, which makes sense.
Yeah. But just barely toe foul there.
I think too, we were talking about this beforehand, before we started the show, is that it's not normal. Throwing is such a safe sport, right? Like there's not a lot of injuries. There's not a lot of athletes getting banged up. And if you saw his non-reverse where he did roll his ankle, it was just a freak accident. And so it's a little weird for somebody who, it would have been cool to see him and Washington go head to head, and we'll see that outdoors. And Geis mixed in there. MacArthur ended up throwing really well from UNC. But I think it's just strange in the throwing world, whereas in a sport like football, even to a point, even with wrestling, it's so normal for guys to miss big events because it's a contact in those contact sports. So it just stinks that, it happened when it did. Yeah. All right, so this is Zeta Swoops, who ended up winning the D2 national title in the women's shot, and this is 16:31. She ended up throwing, I think it was like 17:48, if I remember. Yeah. We couldn't find film of it. But, this at the time, I think, was her PR, and then, 2 to 3 weeks later, she comes out and goes 17:48. And one thing I wanted to think about with this toss was, you can even see she sort of, her left almost blocks her off there, and she doesn't finish as long as she could. But you can see she's got pop. Her celebration's phenomenal. I love that.
I wanted to see what her celebration was like after hitting 17.
Winning the national title. So congrats to her bringing home that D2 national title. And that's the thing too, is watching this stuff and watching this specific throw. She gets that right down a little bit sooner, left a little deeper, and stays on that finish. 1750 is where she's at, and that's exactly what ended up happening. So congrats, putting some big bombs together at that, at the D2 level. Mm-hmm. And I was just trying to think, I think the D2, I think that 1750 would have gotten like third or fourth in D1. Yeah. And so that's another thing, is that there's always certain years where D2, D3 throwers, the top dogs, are just as good as the elite throwers at the Division I level. I was actually thinking about your competition, Trevor. That's almost 6 years ago, by the way. That was, 5 years ago?
Yeah, 6 years, yeah.
Yeah. But that comp had, Roger Steen was in it, Colt Feltus was in that, Sean Don was in there. Mm-hmm. Stacked comp with a bunch of guys that could have been, All-Americans at the D1 level.
I think the top 5 D3 throwers all were ahead of D2 in that competition.
Yeah, and so now this year, the D2 guys.
I think that was a low year for D2, but here in this competition, it's pretty stacked.
Yeah, so this for the men's, you see Ralph Casper, who transferred from Westchester, and Ray Robinson's a coach at Tiffin. He's had just a trap line of 19-meter throwers, and it's just phenomenal watching Tiffin every single year dominate. They went 1 and 2. Congrats to Ralph Casper, just dropping a huge bomb, 1918, I think it was. And then, 1918. Then Nick Curtis comes back and gets second place, and he was also injured. I know he hadn't been in training. He couldn't lift his upper body for the last 3 weeks heading into his peak, which can really screw up his training. So, congrats. Ralph especially transfers out of Westchester, I think during COVID. I think his brother is also there at Tiffin, and, he's just a monster talent, PA's finest. Yeah. I think Ray's going to keep doing big stuff out there. I would argue, Coach Robinson at Tiffin is one of the top 5 NCAA coaches out there. The D2 level getting these types of results. 2 guys at 1893. I'm pretty sure Ralph would have been like top 6. I don't know about Curtis 1893 what that would have placed, but it's got to be close to an All-American spot at the D1 level. Yeah. So congrats to those guys. And this is
This is the Division III leader.
what's his name? Trevor.
Kevin. He's from Wisconsin Stout, I believe.
Okay.
So there's the 1831, which is for D3. That's a
Yeah,
a
that's a good
60-foot
toss.
throw is huge for D3. So,
Right. That's a good throw.
Yeah.
March 7th, so that wasn't too
They
long ago.
they actually
either.
didn't have an NCAA championship. This is just the furthest mark of the year.
They canceled theirs pretty early too. I think in January.
Okay.
I think they canceled all indoor competitions. So,
I feel like that's even a big thing that kind of impacted the high school season
mhm.
because without them having track meets, like, you know, a lot of the D3 schools are
Especially
the ones
around
that
here.
host,
Yeah.
yeah, especially in PA, that host high school competitions.
There's so many D3 schools.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get into the European Championships, but before we do that, we have a book right here. So if you ever want to go out to this circle and you have a problem, you can sit there and say, all right, you know, I've got an issue in the spin at the finish. I'm struggling to actually hit a position at the finish. What are some cues? What are some corrections that I can see? This will show you exactly what's going on, what happens when you might be landing a little bit open and then you start to lift a little early, or any positional issues that you have. You can take the book out to the circle. You can use this as a guide to help you diagnose and get that prescription of, like, all right, what's that cue that can fix this problem? It's available at throwsuniversity.com. Trevor and I put this together. Trevor did most of the work. I think I just verbally committed some knowledge to this. One thing I want to brag about is that in this book, some of the people that are in here, like Jeff's in here, 65-footer.
Yeah.
Maria's in here. She threw 53 feet in high school. Keely's in here.
48.
Yeah, 48 feet. Lucas is in here, 65 feet. Maria still.
And I think the cool part is that, like, we have
Olympians.
They all are making mistakes in this book, and
Right.
that's what we're looking at. The mistakes these elite throwers are making, and so it's like you don't have to like feel bad if you're making these mistakes. Like, everyone does it.
Yeah.
Luke Hoffman too. He's
Yeah, All-American.
Yeah, D2 All-American.
Cyro. Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is that it's this book especially, I just feel like it's a really good companion to take out and to learn different cues that you might not be thinking about, but to also realize, like, dude, the best in the world make mistakes. And it's just a constant progress towards improving that big distance. So, all right, so for the women's shot at the European champs, Ariel Dongmo, we just did a technical analysis. I think she's got one of the fastest right foot in the glide game.
This is 1934.
I love that finish, man. I love that.
I really like the angle on here too, from the side.
Yeah.
You can really see, like, that right foot. I mean, I don't know how tall she is. She looks pretty tall, but her right's not even getting to the halfway mark in the circle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important to acknowledge. That's very good, Trevor, because I think a lot of gliders, a lot of young gliders get stuck where they think about, they don't really know the difference between a short long or a long short, and we do have some videos covering this topic on YouTube. But if you check out with Dongmo, she's got that short long position, that right foot's behind the halfway point, and she's still able to work this real long position with the right shoulder, getting out over the toe board, hanging into that right heel on the toe board, and just hitting a monster bomb at 1934, and she ends up bringing home the gold, beating the Belarusian. Schwanitz, I think, was in this as well, so some serious competition.
Yeah.
I love her left arm there. And then I think you got to get off of that other. And then in the men's side, we've got Thomas Stanek, who ends up going, 21.62. I always wonder if he did that side start prior to Walsh, or was it sort of like the same thing?
I don't know that.
Because I think they're about the same age. This is a big win for him, dude. This is a huge win. I like winning European champs is big, and I think that, I want to say he got fourth at a couple world champs it's huge to come out of this, especially after a long time without having any competition. Then to go out and win the Continental title. I think he even gave a high five to the comp mascot. So congrats to Stanek with that. He's been a 22-meter shot putter in the past, and I think he's showing right here he could be informed to go 22 meters in the outdoor season, and that's what's going to be crazy. I was even thinking about this with Turner Washington, with Pippery, with Geis, those guys at the collegiate ranks, and now you start to bring them into the discussion. You know, Washington's 21 deep, Pippery's 21 deep. What happens when these guys? There might be 6 or 7 guys over 22 meters at USA's. At trials.
I know, it's like, you know.
Yeah, he did give
a
a high five.
All of outdoors, you know, and then you just think in a couple years, like when all these collegiate guys are professionals, like, you know, it's going to be nuts.
Yeah, it'll be insane. So congratulations to Stanek. What's next?
That's it. That's all we got.
So that's all we got. So pick up cues and corrections at throwsuniversity.com. Think about the progression that Adelaide made, the female shot putter that won the NCAA title. Recognize how long it took her, you know, 3 to 4 years to go from, you know, 14 meters, 15 meters, 16 meters. Now she's throwing 18 meters. She just won the NCAA title. That's huge. Same with everybody else in there. Ralph Casper is another guy. He threw 51 feet in high school, 52 feet in high school. Now he's throwing 19 meters. You know, 5 or 6 years later, it takes a lot of time, but be persistent. You know, stay focused on your technique, improve your strength, and those big bombs will come.